Welcome to the Association's Futures podcast, brought to you by Association Activision. We ask you to join us to discuss the future of the Association's community. How can we build and focus on the many futures we will see during these disruptive times? Let's get started with today's guest.
Welcome to another episode of Association Futures. I'm your host, Michael Butera. Our podcast explores the ideas, strategies, and leadership practices shaping what's next for associations. Today's guest is someone who has become a trusted voice in the association community, Cecilia Sen, a CAE, and founder and principal consultant at Rogue Tulips Consulting, a respected association strategist, educator, and thought leader. Many association professionals know Cecilia through her outstanding work in ethics education, governance, and professional development. She is particularly well known for helping current and aspiring association executives prepare for the Certified Association Executive, that's the CAE exam of ASAE, where her guidance has helped countless professionals advance their careers and deepen their understanding of association management. Throughout her career, Cecilia has worked with associations of all sizes and structures, giving her a unique perspective on the challenges and opportunities facing organizations today. While many know her for her expertise in ethics and executive development, today's conversation will focus on another area where she brings significant insight: the role of association management companies, or as they call them in the business, AMCs. As associations navigate talent shortages, raising operational costs, increasing complexity, and the demands of a rapidly changing world, more boards and executives are asking whether an AMC model might offer advantages over the traditional internal staffing structures. Cecilia has observed these discussions from multiple perspectives and has developed valuable insights into when an AMC relationship can create value, where organizations should proceed carefully, and what every association can learn from the AMC model, whether they choose it or not. Cecilia, welcome back to the Association Futures podcast. I am so delighted to have you with us today.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's always fun to be a guest for a change, since I'm usually the host of my own podcast. I think this is going to be a great topic.
Well, thank you. For our listeners who may not be familiar with the AMC model, what exactly is an association management company or operation?
I think that's a great question because I think there is some confusion at times about what do they actually do, how do they help. So association management companies, or AMCs, as Michael's already pointed out, are for-profit businesses that serve associations as clients. So if you think about if you've ever worked with a consultant one-on-one or a small consulting company, an AMC is like a big consulting company that works directly with a client association or nonprofit. So there's a lot of different versions of AMCs, but what they can do is give you more bang for your buck with your budget because there's a variety of ways that you can work with them.
Well, what do you see as some of the biggest misconceptions association leaders have about the AMC model?
I think it's probably a lack of control. So that is where I think people who are not familiar with AMCs are going to say, well, but if we do that, we're not going to be able to make our own decisions or do what we want to do. Now, a board that has made the positive decision, the choice to go to an AMC, they've probably learned about it, thought about it, and understand, well, we're a client, and so we're going to get service, and we're still the client. We still get to run the association in the way that a board participates in what we call running the association, which is stewardship and setting direction. But I think sometimes people think they're not going to be able to make as many decisions. They're not going to be able to make the choices. Maybe they're not going to be able to make the budget decision. But if you are an association that is a client of an AMC, what you get is very experienced people, and you get that whole suite of services that you may not be able to afford on your own with your own budget as a standalone group.
So if you had to explain the value proposition of an AMC to a board chair, or, in some cases they still have an executive that wants to run with this, what would you say to them?
Well, I think the value proposition is just that you can design the model the way you want to work. So, for example, you just touched on one of the examples I was going to share, which is if there's an association that really likes their chief staff executive and they want to keep working with them, you can do that and yet still have an executive director for the AMC that's going to work with that person. So if you think of it of like a president and CEO and an executive director, that executive director then becomes like the number two for that individual, but they get that whole staff support network to move the organization forward instead of having their own separate staff and their own office or and all those things that go along with being a standalone group. So there's value in that. You can have your own staff members that you have picked. You also can go to an AMC and just have them give you support services. So they could do your meetings and they could do your membership management. You could have them be completely your staff. So you have a board and they pick an AMC and they assign them an executive director. We both know several people who work at AMCs and they do that. I also offer contract executive leadership services. So I'm currently working with an association as their contract executive administrator, which is basically the same thing as executive director. It's just a different title. So I'm helping them in that way. And it's very volunteer driven. So, and if that group gets bigger at some point, maybe we might go to an AMC and say, hey, let's buy some services from you, just to take that burden off the volunteers. So that's another value proposition is you can take burden off volunteer leaders of having to do that hands-on work because these people can do it for you at the AMC and do it for less money than if you're trying to do it yourself and also less time, which, as we all know, you and I both are clocking some years here on planet Earth, so we know time is a little more valuable than money.
Yeah, that's a topic for another time. So, what circumstances do you think typically lead an association to consider moving from their own independent management to that AMC relationship?
I think it's most likely lack of funding. And that's sad, but I think it's a more realistic approach than trying to keep your doors open when you don't have the money coming in, when you are a very small niche organization within a broader industry. So I think healthcare is a great example. Healthcare is probably the biggest industry in the world right now. There are thousands of healthcare associations because every specialty wants to have their own association. So there's only so many people out there who can join any organization and they can't join all of them. So, for example, there's the American Medical Association, which serves all the doctors, but then every doctor who's a specialist has their own specialty group. And within that specialty, there are subspecialties.
Right.
So, which one do you join? How much money do you have in your pocket for what's basically a not required membership? You don't have to belong to an association. If you're in a state where you have medical requirements, or you have to belong to the state bar association or you're part of the state bar, that's different than being part of the association. So if you're a lawyer, you have to be part of the state bar, but you don't have to join the ABA.
Right.
It's a choice. Membership's not required, although licensure and certification may be. So how do you make that value proposition argument to an ever fracturing community of subspecialties and then sub-subspecialties, so we have to look at that. So one of those niche subspecialty organizations could be very well served by an AMC because they will get more impact for the time and money that they have to invest.
Well, are there certain warning signs that suggest an association should at least explore the AMC option?
Well, well, I'm going to say if they keep hiring someone from their profession or industry to run the association, that's a warning sign because they are not a nonprofit management expert. It is a profession. It is something you need to learn. It's something you need to get knowledge about. You have to train in it. Just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you can run an association. Now, the opposite's also true. Just because you work at an association doesn't mean you can't be a doctor. But also, though, in all seriousness, a doctor can learn to run an association if they have the mindset for it, if they have a business mind. Too often, when an association hires one of their own, so to speak, they come in with the mindset that the association works the way the profession or industry does, and that's just not true. It's very different. I've talked to other people who are chief staff executives at groups thinking the same thing. It runs like our profession. It does not. So I think where you're going to start seeing some warning signs is somebody from the industry trying to run the group and not really understanding the business model and the fact that it's a relationship industry, it's not what you do at work. Okay.
Yeah,
So it's,
I think those are excellent points. And that brings me to my next question then. So how do you help boards distinguish between the issues that the AMC can actually help with and the issues that really sit in governance, the strategy or the culture issues that go along with that?
yeah, that's a great thing to consider for all of us because the role of the board in governance, and you and I both do a lot of work in that area. So governance is the process by which we make decisions. So if your decision-making process is going off the rails because maybe I'm just going to say it because we know it's true. Maybe because your board chair hired their brother-in-law to run the association. Okay. So it's kind of going off the rails. That's a bad decision. Okay. Unless your brother-in-law has the CAE or the CNP, no, don't hire your brother-in-law. Okay. But seriously, where governance and AMCs could intersect would be in a completely volunteer managed association where the associations are trying to do the tactical work and the strategic work at the same time. You don't have time for both. Guess what? That focus is going to be on tactics, not strategy. You're not going to achieve mission and you're not going to reach your goals. So that's where an AMC could be very helpful to a volunteer run organization. Or like in my situation with a client I'm working with right now as a contract executive administrator, I can come in and I can quickly do things for them that might take them really long. They're also trying to do this in between their day job. So having somebody who can even just put in a few hours a week helping you out makes a huge difference.
So in your experience, Cecilia, uh, what kinds of associations tend to thrive under the AMC management model?
Oh, I think there's not a specific type of association. What I think an association that's going to thrive in that model is one who has consciously thought it through and decided their time as volunteers is more valuable doing strategic work than doing tactical work. So people who go in with an open mind and an open eye to what that AMC can do for you, they're going to do better. Now, people who end up at an AMC because they feel they don't have a choice, they're probably going to hang on by a thread. I was recently talking to my husband about the Ottoman Empire and how it was being propped up for a really long time. And he said, "Oh, that's interesting." He said, and then the Austro-Hungarian Empire, same thing. They kind of hung on by a thread for a long time. They'll hang on.
Yeah.
They won't die. They won't go away. But are they really moving forward? Are they really growing? And so one who ends up at an AMC by default because they can't grow the organization, they don't know what to do, or again, too small of a niche, they're that's where they're going to end up. They're not going to do well at an AMC because they're not there by choice necessarily. They'll tell you it was their choice. They'll tell you, well, we went to the AMC because we decided it was better. No. If you have staff and you're firing staff because you're going to move to the AMC because of money trouble, no, you're there for the wrong reason. But there's a lot of positive reasons to go to an AMC. Again, they can do a lot of work for you that is already in place. You don't have to build the system. The system's already there. They already have a meetings and events program and department. They already have a membership management department. They already have a printing and design department. And then they can come in and help you have your board meeting and serve your members. So there's a lot of benefits to it if you go into it positively. And a lot of groups will start out at an AMC and become so strong, then they go out and become a standalone.
Yeah.
So
You
there's a
know,
lot of benefits. It's like an incubation center for them in some ways.
yeah, a lot of the friends of the podcast probably don't know that you and I share a real love for history. That's why I like the way you started answering my question there. I'd like to move on to one of those areas that I believe associations, whether they're using an AMC or not, don't do very well. And that's to discuss the whole issue of risk management.
Mhm.
So, what have you seen as the most important benefits for boards when they move from the internal staffing partner volunteer system to the AMC, especially around, clarifying roles and strategic focus and risk?
Well, I would hope that moving to the AMC would help clarify those roles because, as you and I both know, we've been on staff many times before we were consultants. And even though we may know what our role is, other people may not. So, first of all, clarifying those roles with the AMC is very important. You cannot treat them like they work for you. They do work for you, but you are also a client and they're there to provide a service. You're there to work with them, not tell them what to do. That's a big difference. Okay. Working with someone is very different from telling them what to do. So let the AMC help you. Let the AMC give you advice. Let that experienced account manager who is serving as your executive director guide you through your board decisions and your governance process and let them make suggestions and take them seriously. That's a good way to mitigate risk. Having the AMC is going to give you some buffer for risk management because they will point it out to you very clearly, probably more so, I'm guessing here, but this is my take on it. I think they're going to point it out a little more clearly than somebody who's an employee of the association because there's different balancing acts there. Whereas like the AMC can say, you know what, we have a general counsel here who helps all our clients and they've seen this thing and we think we should discuss it. Or maybe you shouldn't do this thing because the general counsel thinks there's a little too much risk here. So that can be helpful, but there's, different levels of risk and risk can hide behind many different doors, as we both know.
Let's look at this from another perspective. So, when the board moves to an AMC,
Mhm.
how should it think about the control and oversight of the institution? I mean, what stays firmly with the board and what do you think appropriately shifts to the AMC team? Like the board practices, we're going to have dashboards or role descriptions. What about performance reviews? In
Mhm.
short, what have you seen to keep the AMC relationship healthy and accountable?
Well, I think a lot of that's going to have to do with your account manager, because they are still very much in that role of chief staff executive, what we commonly call executive director. That's going to be key to keeping those. I think we've been saying guardrails a lot the last 3 or 4 years. So those guardrails up about, hey, 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 don't stray into my lane and I'm not going to stray into yours. That's really important. Like not everybody thrives as an AMC executive director because they probably wouldn't thrive as a standalone executive director. So you have to make sure you have that person in place, but also you use the word control with the board. And I think when you try to control something, that's where things really go off the rails. One of the things I've been thinking a lot about, especially this year in 2026, is the desperate need we have on this planet for grown-ups. Grown-ups don't control each other. Grown-ups talk to each other and work together. So if you have a board that's willing to work with their AMC and focus on decision making and direction setting, mission fulfillment, and governance, which again is decision making, if they're willing to do that, make the decisions, and then hand it off to the AMC to do the work behind those decisions, they're going to thrive. They're going to do very well. But if they come in with this attitude of control and we're going to tell you what to do, and no, we don't like that, and we're going to do what we want to do no matter what, nobody thrives in that. So
Yeah.
don't control, work with, know your role. You're not there to do work on the board. You're not an employee. You're
Yeah.
there to offer oversight, insight, and foresight, as we like to say. So focus on those things, and you also have a better time as a board member.
So when that's important too. When when you advise boards during a selection process where they're thinking about going to an AMC, are there a few criteria that matter most beyond cost? Is it cultural fit? Is it sector influence, insight, governance, fluency, capacity issues? What do you see?
Those are great points to bring up for the audience who may be considering an AMC, or maybe you're out in the audience thinking, maybe I want to work at an AMC. So when you're looking at these things, it's very much like any client relationship. So if you're going to be a client of someone, you want to make sure that it's somebody you can work with. You want to make sure it's somebody you like. Some people may remember the old book, Likeonomics. People
Uh-huh.
work with people they like. If they don't like you, they're not going to work with you. So you got to find your people, right? So definitely cultural fit. There are AMCs who specialize in certain segments in the economy. So there's AMCs that focus on healthcare. There's AMCs that focus on legal associations. So you can find an AMC that's focused on your profession or industry. You also want to look at size. So if you are a big association, and there are some big associations that use AMCs for a lot of reasons. So if you're a big one, you want to make sure you're at an AMC that has the capacity to serve your needs. If you're a smaller association, you're not just going to look at budget, you're going to look at how many people do they have on staff? Do they have enough people to help us? Because if they're a small AMC, how many clients can they actually manage? I'm a solopreneur consultant, for example. I cannot work with more than 4 clients at a time and give everybody the attention they need. So
Yeah.
ask those kind of questions. How many clients do you already have? How many staff do you have? Sometimes an AMC will hire more people to serve your account because you're going to be paying them. So ask about that. Are they going to be doing that? Will you let us bring over staff that we want? And if we want to keep working with these staff, like our chief staff executive, do they have to be an employee of yours? Or can we have an executive contract with them? So those are the sorts of questions you have to start asking, and definitely culture. I mean, you don't, so like if you're an association that has a good sense of humor and likes to have fun, you don't want to go to a super serious AMC because, it's like meeting the in-laws the first time. It's not going to go well.
Yeah.
So
I know you know that I'm a big proponent of the Banny worldview, this brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and sometimes inconceivable environment in which there's so many changing conditions and happening so rapidly. So in that context, how does an AMC support agility in this kind of disruptive environment that we find ourselves in?
I don't think an AMC is necessarily going to be any more responsive than your own staff. And I say that because they're a separate corporation and they're going to have their own decision-making processes. They're going to have their own layers. They're going to have their own internal obstacles to moving forward on things. So I talk to other people who work at AMCs and they're kind of like, well, it takes us so long to get a decision made. It sounds very much like talking to staff at a standalone association. It's taken a long time to get anything done. So I think the Banny worldview, I know that's popular. I know you're intrigued by it. Uh, Frankly, I don't buy into it. So I think it's a very negative view of the world because you know what? The world's never been static.
Yeah.
We're just
Well,
more
that's
aware of
true.
it now. And the way I look at it, I live in a very comfortable place. I have food, I have water, I have clean clothes. I can watch TV whenever I want, even on my phone. And I think back, you and I are love of history. I think back to like olden times, like the Middle Ages, where you're just there minding your own business, and all of a sudden the Huns are coming over the horizon and they steal all your food and sell your women into slavery and steal your horse. It's like we don't live in that world. I think that world's much more banny than the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
So that's a banny world right there, right? The Huns are coming, and if it's not the Huns, it's the Mongolians, or it's the Celts, that the Goths. I mean, people are overrunning each other all the time. That's a very banny world because you don't get a warning. We live in a world where we get warnings. We know what's going on. We get a lot of news. We got a lot of information. You going along, your phone dings. There's a tornado coming. Get in the basement. It's much, I think, much easier to survive the world right now than in past situations. But I think coming back to the Banny perspective of how we're all feeling, I mean, well, okay, full disclosure, I don't feel that way, but I know others do. People feel very Banny right now, and it's because the world is falling away. So what we have to look at is the fact that these other structures that we might be turning to give us that stability, they're also living in the Banny world. So they're also going to be struggling a little bit. So I don't think that necessarily going to an AMC is going to make you feel less anxious. I think what it can do is give your board room to think and room to look at that Banny worldview and say, these things are happening very quickly in our profession or industry. How are we going to react
Mhm.
to these things? Because we're using Banny, we're looking at that. So we have room to think now
Well,
because
one of the
we have
things
the same.
I'm sorry, one of the things I really like about our exchange and interaction is that, you're not afraid to tell me what you think, and you help me think as well. All of us have to have people that challenge our assumptions and work. So thank you. Um, so, what lessons can traditionally managed associations learn from the AMC approach?
Oh, I like that question. What we can learn from that approach is this. You spend a lot of time and money putting a staff together. So let's take it from the top, right? The board spends a lot of time and money hiring who they think is just the right chief staff executive. Let that person do their job. And then when the chief staff executive is in place and they build that team, let your team do their job. How many times have you and I joked as consultants that we get work because we need to come in and say what the staff's already told them,
Yeah, it's true.
right? And they're not listening to the staff. You spend a lot of time and money putting together this great team of people. Let them do their job. Let them give you advice. You don't have to take it, but listen to them, their expertise, their knowledge. Let them do the work. Don't interfere in that. So I grew up playing a lot of team sports. So we all have a position to play. Play your position. Don't get in the way of your teammate doing what they need to do to make the team successful. And that's what we can learn from the AMC model, because if you're a board working with an AMC, you're letting the AMC probably just do their work every day. You're not in the middle of it like you might be in a standalone association. You're going to have a good relationship, hopefully, with your executive director at the AMC, but you're not going to be in the middle of the meetings department going, why haven't you done this yet? Because there's somebody running the AMC who's doing that for you. So I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of lessons there. When you put a team together, let the team perform. And I think that's the big takeaway that you can get from the AMC model.
So it's interesting. I want to go back and talk a little bit more about that green stuff, money. Uh,
Mhm.
so, what financial assumptions about AMCs do most boards often get wrong? And and is it true that AMCs are always less expensive than employed staff?
I'm going to say no, they're not always less expensive. It's definitely a smaller line item than your salaries, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a standalone association's budget, their salary line for paid employees, not contractors, but employees, is probably going to be about 25% of the budget. And that's including not just salary, but any benefits you might give, any taxes you have to pay, etc. So they're not necessarily less expensive because you're paying them a retainer fee every month. So you're paying them a lot of money every month to do all this other work. That fee could be kind of high depending on the level of service you need. So you know, I don't know how much it costs right now because all the costs are going up. But if you're a small association handing over everything to an AMC, that could be very comparable to that salary line item. It might be a little less expensive. You don't necessarily go to an AMC because it's less expensive. And again, as I said earlier, if you're doing that, that's another issue you're not addressing that we can't afford to have a staff anymore, so we're going to a small AMC. And it's like anything, Michael, you get what you pay for. The less you pay for an AMC, the less service you're going to get. So it's not like it's inexpensive to go to an AMC. It can give you cost savings by not having as large a staff or by having contract staff because you're not paying the taxes, they are. But guess what? You are paying for everything else. So you're going to be paying a monthly fee. They might give you add-on fees depending on what else they do for you. So like if you want an extra service, that's something else you have to pay for. So when you're looking at the money part, I don't think they're really comparable because, when you're budgeting for a full-time staff versus budgeting for basically a contractor, because they're providing you contract services, very similar to what a consultant would do. So you're not necessarily saving money to go to an AMC, but it could just be more cost effective for you because maybe you can keep your C-suite team,
Yeah.
but you have to let everybody else go. Or it just turns out that's better. It makes more sense. Maybe you only do a few things a year. Some boards meet every month, some boards meet twice a year. They don't need a lot of board meeting support. They might do one big conference a year. So there's a lot of that too. The nature of the work of the organization is really going to inform a lot of what that budget's going to be.
We can't have a conversation anymore without talking about technology.
Right.
So, I mean, it's here and it's changing and it's important. It does a lot of good things. And I know in your ethical work, you're very careful on this subject as well. But uh, associations struggle with technology decisions.
Mhm.
So, can AMCs help associations navigate their technology investments? And what lessons about digital transformation have you observed from an AMC managed perspective?
Oh, wow. Again, more good questions and points to consider. We definitely all struggle with technology. If anybody read my recent blog post about technology is throttling us, I've had a lot of issues with my new technology that's supposed to be faster and really isn't yet. It'll be fantastic when all the software catches up with the Snapdragon processor. But how many people know that? So, how many people even know what the Snapdragon processor is? So, having an AMC to help you with technology navigation is really a godsend because they're going to have an IT department or a good IT contractor that works with all their clients, and they're going to be able to answer those questions for you. They're going to be able to guide you through the technology landscape. I think what happens a lot with associations is they buy bigger technology than they really need, and then it's frustrating because it doesn't really do what they want. So there's some smaller tech systems out there right now, and I say smaller because they're less expensive, they're less known, but they're completely customizable. They build the database you need, not the database they sell. And that's a big
If,
difference. So you can look
yeah,
at things like that. I think you get a lot more help because let's say you go to an AMC and they just all use the same system, which some of them do. Like they'll buy a big enterprise contract and they just plop you right into their system. You don't have to worry about it. They just have to get your data in there. So you don't have to make a decision because they've made it for you. And I think, wow, that's a relief. I make a lot of decisions every day. So it's nice once in a while when somebody else makes one for me. So I think there's that boon there with the AMC. They're going to have the people on staff who can give you guidance. They will also learn the AMC, or I'm sorry, the AMC will learn your AMS. We have too many acronyms, Michael.
Yeah,
Okay, so
acronyms all over the place.
so your AMC will learn your AMS if you really like it, and they'll manage it for you. So there's that benefit as well. So we have a lot of different options in that mix with the opportunities to work together on these technology decisions and building our tech stack. So I think there's a lot of benefits for that if you work with an AMC.
If you could give every association CEO or board chair that inevitable one piece of advice based on what you've learned from the AMC world,
Mhm.
what would that be?
That advice would be what I've already said, let your team perform. Because whether you're working with an AMC or a full-time staff, you need to let them do their work. Let your team perform, let them play their role. And I think that's too often boards feel that they need to get too involved in the day-to-day and the operations and the tactical. And that's with an AMC or with a full-time staff. Don't do that. Do the
What
opposite. Let them do their work. That would be the advice I would give because that's what you're going to get if you go to an AMC. You're going to get a team that's already in place that knows what to do.
Well, Cecilia, as we wrap up and as we close out today, the first thing I want to do is, of course, thank you for helping us take a look at the AMC model through a truly professional lens. And if listeners want to reach you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Oh, well, thank you, Michael. I want to thank you before I share that for inviting me back. I always enjoy our conversations. And again, it's really fun to be the guest once in a while. So truly enjoyed it. The best way to find me or get in touch with me, there's several actually, because I believe in options. So you can visit my website, roguetulips.com, and fill out our contact form. You can email me, Cecilia@roguetulips.com, and that's CECI, not CECE. And also, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you very much, Cecilia. Again, thanks, Cecilia, for helping us explore this important topic. Here at Association Futures Podcast, we strive to help association leaders take a step back and ask, are we managing actively? Or are we building a system that consistently creates value for those we serve? Because in the end, the future of our organizations will not be determined by what we intended to do, but by what we actually designed to deliver. Friends, I'm Michael Butera, host of the Association Podcast Futures, where we help you to not just prepare for what next, but to shape it. See you the next time. Thanks, folks.